Recording in progress.
Oh my gosh, let's jump into this. So, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, or the Secret Life of Mormon Wives. I'm probably like, it's like such a tongue twister. So, I was really drawn to this because I am from the cult. I'm formerly Mormon, which I do consider Mormonism a cult, due to, well, I'll do a whole other video on that. But so we won't worry about that. So, this is my reaction video to episode 1, and let's just jump in.
Taylor Frankie Paul. One of the most salacious headlines and non-influencing, the Mormon mom talk community scandal. There were two-time moms, swinging, partner swapping, being scandalous.
Wow. Okay. So, first things first. So this Mom Talk scandal, I had not heard of Mom Talk. I had not heard of the scandal. I saw the Hulu trailer and I was like, what? Well, first I saw the title and I was like, okay, this is cool. Do a reaction video. And what? Okay, soft swinging, changing partners. Wow. Like that is so... yeah, the Mormon Church way against that. So very shocking. So I'm sure it's shocking to members and former members alike. So I'm sure like anybody who's a former member like me was like, whoa, okay. I mean, to each their own. If that's what they want to do, great for them as long as they're happy. I mean, like that's the most important thing, is that you're happy in your life. But so it became a scandal. So it would be very scandalous within the Mormon religion, or I can't speak for anybody who's not Mormon. I've been not Mormon for a while, but, every culture is different. But the Mormon culture, huge taboo. So let's see what else is coming up.
It started so innocent. Me and all these moms were like feeling the same things. I grew up in a glass box, thinking that everybody was this way. That everybody in the world is Mormon. There are a lot of rules that we have to follow. No swearing, one piercing, no caffeine, no alcohol, no tattoos, your body's a temple. We're not supposed to have sex before marriage, which, oops. Our kids by the time you're 21, or in my case, at 16.
Okay. All right. So one thing I thought was really fascinating is, I believe it was Whitney. Sorry, they all almost look the same. But I think it was Whitney that said she felt like she grew up in a glass box and they all thought everybody was Mormon. So for me, that says they probably grew up in Utah County. I lived in Utah for over 20 years. I've lived in Vegas. I've lived in a couple different states since. I haven't lived in Utah now for over 20 years. So it is kind of nice to get away from that culture. But saying that she grew up in a glass box, I always called it a bubble, like it was a Utah bubble, and they kept women very naive. Women are very suppressed in this culture. It's a very patriarchal culture. So women are seen and not heard. Women really don't have a lot of rights with their husband, and you're supposed to do anything your husband wants. And the culture, which they talk about, there are a lot of rules, and it's really hard. Now I don't know that I could follow any of the rules, like at all. There's a thing called the Word of Wisdom, and so they briefly touch on it. They didn't call it the Word of Wisdom, but they talked about like the no alcohol, no caffeine. They said one body piercing, no tattoos. So the Word of Wisdom does not address piercings and tattoos. It literally doesn't say that in there, probably because, I think the Word of Wisdom came out in I'm probably totally wrong because it's been decades since I actually read the Doctrine and Covenants, but it was probably like around the 1850s it came out, maybe 1840s. So you're talking a completely different time period, and it is what it is. So I know, like, when I was growing up in Utah, I was in Salt Lake County, which was a lot more liberal than Utah County, and I would honestly say, based on what, like, the comment that they thought everybody was Mormon, that would tell me they grew up in Utah County. Utah County is a lot more Mormon. BYU is there, which is Brigham Young University, so it's huge. Even though, like, the church headquarters is in Salt Lake, Salt Lake has more of a cultural shift because you've got a larger percentage of, well, you've got more non-Mormons in Utah County than you would in Utah. I'm sorry, you have more non-Mormons in Salt Lake County than you would in Utah County. So with the word of wisdom, I got really derailed there for a minute. So I think, like, I know people who grew up in Utah County that you could not get any body piercings. That included 4 ears and 0 tattoos. So I grew up in Salt Lake County, where more of the Mormon girls would have 1 piercing in their ears. There wasn't really rules on it, but I will tell you, like, being a teenager in the church at the time, they really did push, don't wear earrings, don't get piercings, period, don't get tattoos, your body's a temple, don't defile your temple. And that comes along with the sex. And we had the one girl, I think her name was Jen. Sorry, they all almost look the same, so it's going to take me a while to get used to who everybody is. Said that she had a child at 16. So that right there, that poor girl being a minor, I can't even imagine if her parents were strict Mormons, what it would have been like. Because any Mormon girl have premarital sex, it was like huge taboo. You were shunned. There was, like, slut shaming. I mean, it was not good. It was not good at all. So for her to even come out and be like, I got pregnant at 16, that's like a huge thing. I hope she didn't have to deal with trauma from that within her family, because the trauma that the church and parents that are very active in the church can put on their children in that situation is really bad. And keep in mind, the Mormon church kind of looks at having sex before marriage. It's as bad as murder, literally. So, I mean, there's like, it's as bad as murder. And then the other rules fall within the word of wisdom. The sex before marriage is in the word of wisdom. So they brought up the alcohol. They brought up the no caffeine. I'm surprised they didn't bring up the no coffee. So the word of wisdom actually says no hot drinks, which literally would mean no coffee, no tea, no hot chocolate. The caffeine thing is a huge thing. I know the first time I went with a neighbor to a BYU game, they had like Sprite, root beer, and non-caffeinated Coke products. So the caffeine thing is a huge thing. So, and I did notice they are drinking coffee. So that's completely, like, that makes you like a total rebel in the Mormon church, because it's got a lot of caffeine and it's a violation of the word of wisdom. So there are a lot of rules. So I 100% agree with them on that. And when there's a lot of rules, especially if you go outside of, and Utah's changed a lot, because I have gone back to visit. There's a lot more available now than when I was growing up. And so it would be really hard to keep those rules. Even when I first moved out of state and would go to work events and people would be drinking alcohol and I was still Mormon, that was very uncomfortable for me because of how it was pounded in you not to drink alcohol. And the guilt that is pushed upon you and you're going to go to hell. I was like, am I going to go to hell because I'm with people that are drinking? I mean, it literally gets in your head. So there's a lot of trauma involved in the Mormon church. So it's not just a lot of rules. A lot of those rules they're bringing up, you can get so shunned for within the Mormon church. So, they're kind of like bringing that introduction into part of the culture, of the religious culture there. All right, let's listen to a bit more. Like, I hope you guys are enjoying this.
A TikTok live. Shay and I are getting divorced. I don't know what you would call it if it's like soft swinging, but you don't like fully switch. We had an agreement, like all of us, and I did step out of that agreement. I at least wanted to explain that to people. Like, my husband wanted to share. He did want to open that up. So it's like I caught feelings for a man that my husband welcomed into our house. Like, no one was innocent. Everyone has hooked up with like everyone in the situation. She was like,
all right, okay, so we get to this part and I'm like, oh my gosh, so like this whole group was hooking up with each other. And then we see in the next thing that a bunch of the other moms knew nothing about this. So it sounds like it was part of the group that was doing this. So soft swinging, yeah, like this is literally, I mean, if they want to be active in the church, again, this is a sin similar to murder, like, which is completely ridiculous. And this is where a lot of young girls find themselves in trouble. And I'm going to say young girls because the church is a lot harder on women and sex than men and sex. Again, we're looking at a patriarchy. So women are supposed to be chaste and submit to the men. And this was really interesting though, like, so her name is Taylor, talking about the soft swinging and how she broke the agreement. So it's nice that she's coming out and being honest to a certain extent. She said everybody was doing it. So it sounds like in the next set, like everybody wasn't doing it. And so she kind of caused a little issue there. But how do you like say, hey, yes, there's a controversy, there's a scandal without naming names? Because she's at least being nice and not naming names and saying so-and-so was there and so-and-so. But I could see how that would that's going to definitely cause a rift among this group of women who are friends. So that was like very interesting, like the way she went about it. Also, like, literally, I don't know if this segment where they showed her video on TikTok where she like was talking about breaking the rules and soft swinging, if that's what made it public. So I wanted to kind of keep that in mind. Like, she makes this very public, and I don't know, people like drama, so maybe that's why people were drawn into it. So let's listen to it a little bit more.
Mom Talk is essentially a content creator house, except for we don't actually live together. And we're all moms, we're all Mormons. I guess you could say a lot of us in Mom Talk look similar. We all have a similar style or a similar look, but we're just going off Facebook's trending, especially in Utah. There's a lot of blonde bitches here. So, I mean, what do you expect? Lacey, I need you to twerk your...
All right, so I'm glad they said that they look similar because they all look similar. Yeah, it's kind of like when you live in Utah, you'll see the polygamists, they all look similar, and you can kind of tell who the Mormon people are because they all kind of have a similar style. Not at all like the style like the moms of Mom Talk have. So I think this is kind of, I'm not sure where this is coming from, like their style. It is really different. I think it's them trying to break out and say, look, I want to be independent. Because really, even though the Mormon church teaches you have choice and accountability, they don't let you be autonomous. So it's really hard to just be unique. And so maybe that's why they all kind of they literally all have the same style. So that's really interesting. So, okay, let's head to this next clip.
Yeah, they're hard. They're challenging. I think that they should be with you more. I have 50% of the time, like divorced parents do. What? Just say it. Nothing. Do you think I'm a bad person for those mistakes that I did? I don't think you're a bad person. I just think that you've done a lot of bad things and that have made you look bad. Have you talked to your bishop or the church about anything? No. No? How come? I don't know, because, like, what if they're gonna, like, excommunicate me? Okay. When you are out soft swinging, what do you expect? With all this soft swinging, what does that mean? Do you guys know, like, what they all did? I think it's just...
Okay, so we're going to stop there. I didn't want to, like, do the clip of the soft swinging. So first I want to address Taylor and her mom. This is kind of a typical Mormon mother-daughter. Like, Mormon moms will flat out, like, tell their daughters when they are doing something against the church or something against the parents, like something that upsets the parents. And so it was really interesting. They start out talking about the kids, and it sounds like, I mean, it's, this is an inference, and my opinion could be completely off kilter here, but, like, the mom's literally like, the kids are hard, and she literally says to Taylor, you should have them more. And Taylor replies, I have them 50% of the time, like most divorced parents. So I think, like, that 50% of the time they're with mom. Taylor does seem like a party girl. Like, she's not really ready to take on the responsibilities of a mom, which is, I mean, there are people out there that do that. So it's completely fine. It is a lot for a mom, regardless of if the mom is Mormon or not. So I did kind of want to bring that up, but the mom is extremely like, hey, like, this is too much. So, and then Taylor asks her, asks her mom, am I bad for my mistakes? And the mom basically is telling her, well, you look bad. And she's done bad things. So, I mean, the mom was kind of being very soft about this, I felt. Most Mormon mothers, when you do something that violates the word of wisdom, especially sex before marriage, this soft swinging that she's been doing, that's really bad. And you're really raised that you need to follow the church rules. You need to obey your parents. That's, like, just drilled into you. So her parents probably are very ashamed of her and are treating her that way. And then I found it really interesting that Taylor's mom asks if she's talked to her bishop. So, like, this is one thing that I, like, absolutely don't like about any religion where you're supposed to go confess. So the bishop is like the preacher or the rabbi or the priest of the Mormon church. And you're supposed to confess your sins. Same thing. And Taylor's basically like, no, I don't want them to excommunicate me. So avoiding going is not going to stop the excommunication. If the church decides to, I'll be quite honest, I'm kind of, like, surprised. I mean, I haven't seen anything that any of the moms in Mom Talk have been excommunicated. But the Mormon church is very hard on people, especially if you go in the public and it's, like, negative publicity for them. Like, for example, when John Krakauer's book, Under the Banner of Heaven, came out, I was a teenager still, in high school, and literally a flyer was passed out by our church not to read this book. When he was doing his report of investigation, literally, like, Mormon members were told not to talk to John. So, like, it was a big, big thing. It was a huge controversy, and it was like, when the book came out, it was weeks. Don't read this book. Don't read this book. Like, it's a sin to read this book. And you're like, okay. I of course read it. Like, I'm kind of like, that's any time the Mormon church told me not to read something, I would read it. Even when the Jehovah's Witnesses were coming into the Mormon cult territory, you had Jehovah's Witnesses. I read their stuff and I was like, okay, great, another cult. But there you go. So, like, listening to this, I do know that I have a friend that is still in the Mormon church who did say that the Mormon church did come down and tell its members not to watch this Hulu show. So I have a feeling that all of the women participating and their husbands that are members probably will be talked to I would not be surprised if the women are excommunicated and not the men. Um, it's kind of sensitive. I would honestly, if the man goes on the show, if the husband goes on the show with the wife, I think for sure they will be excommunicated. If the husband does not go on the show and only the wife, I think only the wife, I'm going to say flat out, the Mormon church is a lot harder on women than on men. Like, flat out. Feel free to ask questions about that. I know people, I know women who were treated very horribly in situations with the church. So, you can see that Taylor wants to be part of this religion. She grew up in it. She has been brainwashed in this because we know her mom is a member of the church. We know her father is a member of the church. So she's been grown up in this. So, you don't want to disconnect from the church because this is all you know. You have been brainwashed by this culture. So she's scared to talk to her bishop because she knows what she did, her having an affair with the soft swinging and all of that, that is excommunicatable. It literally, I cannot pound this enough. It is considered a sin with the Mormon church. A sin as bad as murder. Depending, I know the book's called The Miracle of Forgiveness. They had a lot of us read that, and oh my gosh, that was so harsh. They had all of the teenagers read it because we kind of had a little scandal in our ward. A girl had gotten pregnant, and so they made all of us read it. We were all being punished for her sin. And reading that book, it was oh my gosh, because literally in the book, it's telling you that having sex before marriage or outside of your marriage is a worse sin than murder. So I see where Taylor's coming from. She doesn't want to go confront that. However, Taylor's really trying to break out and be her own autonomous person. So there are better things out there. Being somebody who left the church, I left on my own accord. It did not resonate with me. If Taylor were to ask me if she should stay or if she should go, I'd be like, you need to go, girl, because you can't be yourself when you're in a cult like the Mormon church. So I just kind of found that very interesting. So there's that take on that.
I feel like you've never gone through divorce. You've never had your entire, sex life online for the entire world to see. I just don't know how you choose these guys like Dakota. What's wrong with Dakota? Dakota has an addiction. Okay, and that doesn't define who he is as a person. So Dakota, he has a pretty crazy backstory. He's a recovering addict. He almost died from fentanyl. You have 2 kids that you really have to think about. They're trying.
Okay. All right. So I realize I forgot to comment on the stuff that I didn't want to play. So I will comment on that after. So Taylor and her mom are talking again in this segment, and the mom's really trying to give her some advice here. Again, it's probably not necessarily wanted advice. It's probably Hulu asked for this. How much of this is scripted and how much of it is unscripted? That's the big thing. However, I'm seeing a lot of it as cultural norms within the Mormon church. So she's talking about how mom's talking to Taylor about how she doesn't like the boyfriend Dakota and how he is a recovering addict. This does not surprise me. So we do find out that Dakota is a member of the Mormon church. Addiction is pretty high, especially when a child is raised in a family that they're very strict Mormons, or their parent may be part of what they call the bishopric. So how it is structured is you go to what they call a ward, and you have a bishop that oversees you, and he has a first and a second counselor. Those are the bishopric. And then all of the wards report to a stake, and the stake has an outlined area, and there's a stake president, and he has a first and a second counselor. And then the stakes report up from there. Don't ask me up from there, I can't remember. So I noticed growing up in and being in the church that usually addiction problems happened a lot with children who had extremely strict Mormon parents, or their parents were part of the bishopric or the stake presidency, or even like I had a roommate in college and her father was like one of the religious advisors at BYU, and oh my gosh, like, oh, I could do like probably a 5-hour thing on the weird stuff that girl did. But she had such a strict upbringing that like it was amazing the stuff that like you could do that would offend her. So like those strict upbringings really, it will force people to be extremely compliant, mousy, and shy. But some people have such a hard time because they really want to be their authentic self. They don't want to be bogged down by all these rules, and so addiction becomes really high. So it doesn't surprise me that Dakota is part of the Mormon Church, wants to be part of the Mormon Church, and has an addiction problem. Addiction tends to be a way to deal with your childhood trauma, and when you are raised in a cult like the Mormon Church, you are being thrust upon with tons of trauma. So again, we've got like, and Taylor's going to these, so we know Taylor is dealing with this, especially with the conversation with the mom. So, and then the mom does bring up, you have 2 kids to take care of. And I kind of cut it off there. You know, great, thank you for telling her. She is acting out as part of her trying to find her authentic self, but knowing that being her authentic self is a violation of all of these rules with the Mormon Church. So she's like traumatized. And yeah, she has these kids, and the Mormon Church teaches you when you're a woman to be barefoot and pregnant and multiply. So, you know, you've got somebody who's trying to follow the rules and not. So like, I kind of see Taylor as she's trying to rebel against the Mormon Church, but at the same time, she wants to be a part of it. And this is why she's got these kids. So I forgot, like, because I was like getting into that. So in between these two, they had this segment where the other moms of TikTok are talking about the soft swinging and asking about the details. You got to totally watch this. So if you don't have Hulu, definitely get Hulu, because you have to watch some, because I am cutting some of the stuff out because I don't know that we can say it on YouTube and TikTok. So we know not all of the moms were involved, and we know they were swinging parties. I'm going to leave it at that. They do give a little bit of detail. So it sounds like the people who were swinging were in a room together, and they had to be in the same room together, and that was the rule. I don't know. That would make me feel really uncomfortable. But that's me personally. I mean, I have, that's just me personally. But I did want to also go back to Taylor and her mom. Like, she literally is criticizing her mom because she says to her mom, "You're not divorced, and your sex life is not on the internet." Again, Mormon Church does not like people to get divorced. Like, that's like a big, huge no-no. And so you'll run into people who are completely miserable in their marriages in the Mormon Church. And you're like, boy, they would be better off if they were divorced, and they're not. So you do run into that. And Taylor did the confession. So we heard her confession in the Hulu show. You can also see it on her TikTok. I don't know if before she did her confession and before it was on this Hulu show, if it was coming out and that's why she did that. But that was a choice. She could have done PR to keep her sex life off of, or keep, I don't know if I can even say that word. She should have done something to keep that part, the swinging life, off. She made that choice, and it's probably it would be really difficult to do if you're a content creator and you're followed by millions, because all of these women are followed by millions of people. So kudos to them for being able to find a job to stay home and take care of their kids. All right, let's jump into a little bit more
I'm 23 years old. I've been married to my husband, Jace, for 6 years now, and I have 3 kids, Beckham, Haven, and Tony. I was born and raised Mormon. My mom was one of the church leaders, so we would have to act like the most perfect little Mormon family. How old were you when you met Jace? 16. And then I got pregnant before marriage. Jace was 21 then. I do social media, content creation.
All right. Holy shocking. Okay. So this again goes back to when I was talking about the addiction. This is a young girl who her mother was a leader in the church. So when she says that, that tells me that the women's organization is the Relief Society. So her mother was probably a ward Relief Society president, a stake Relief Society president, or maybe her mother was higher up and like, because she said a church leader. That leads me to believe a stake or higher, that she may have actually been somebody that worked, that was, they do have like the Relief Society president overall of the world, and so maybe she was somewhere in there. So she would have had to be on very good behavior. She would probably be reprimanded if she had a Coke that had caffeine. Like, I can only imagine. And so, again, this comes into, you have kids that will act out as in drinking or doing illicit drugs, or you will have people who become sexually active. So, doesn't surprise me. As soon as she said church leader, I'm pregnant at 16, that literally does not surprise me. It is concerning, though, that her husband was 21 at the time, because now you're looking at something completely different, a 21-year-old with a 16-year-old. That's kind of shocking. Is what it is, I guess. I mean, you know, but let's go on a little bit more.
I know we were only in Hawaii for a little bit, but I kind of miss that because I feel like we ran away from something. I don't want to lie about it anymore. Taylor even asked me the other day about the whole Tinder rumor, and I denied it again.
Yeah, it's probably hard for you to lie about that.
I just think that at the time, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't even know what I wanted.
I just hate talking about what happened to be in the same breath as what I did to you.
All right. Totally shocking. You know, so you've got these 2 Mormon people and husbands on Tinder, and Whitney saying they ran away to Hawaii to kind of get away from the rumor. So, very interesting. You know, this is a husband that probably, again, people get married really young in Utah. Your brain is not fully developed. I mean, you know, I would guess that they were married not long after high school. But definitely, like, if they were married in their early 20s, I would say definitely before age 25. And I think that's a lot to put on a young person. You need time to, like, know your partner, but you also need time to find yourself. And in the Mormon culture, you cannot be authentic. You can't find yourself. So I think this is why we get a lot of Mormon women who literally are in marriages that they're not happy. So clearly, Whitney's husband, Connor, is not happy because he was on Tinder. I mean, what the heck, right? So, like, that was interesting, but, like, let's learn a little more about this.
That Connor was on Tinder. I don't know if you guys remember that rumor. Yeah. Of course you do. Yeah. And I lied about it because I was embarrassed. I didn't even know it was true until I confronted Connor. And I went to him like, look at this joke. There was more to that. He had been struggling with a porn addiction, and I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to come out because I just feel like there's a whole story. You know, there's a reason why people do certain things, and I think he was just confused. I I literally said, I was like, this does not happen to me. Like, this isn't something that happens to me. I literally haven't told any.
All right, stopping it there. So, okay, so we find out from Whitney, she confesses to her friends. She has like this important thing, confesses to her friends what her husband Connor's doing. They want to be this good Mormon family. They're both, again, I think they were way too young when they got married, and growing up in this cult, they don't know anything other than this cult. So they're trying to find their authentic self while being bogged down by all these rules. I didn't address when I talked about addiction. There are like what Connor's doing on Tinder and his other addiction that he talked about. I don't know how like phrase that one. That addiction is not like, it is very frowned upon. Again, we go back to the Word of Wisdom in the Mormon Church. We go back to the Miracle Forgiveness book. You know, Whitney is feeling ashamed because of her husband's sin. We don't, I mean, the husband seemed like in the segment where he was on, he did seem like sincere that he had a problem. So I think Whitney needed somebody to talk to other than her husband. She probably has a lot of trust issues with him. Is talking to a group of friends okay? I don't, like, honestly, I think this is my personal belief. If you want to have a stronger relationship with your spouse, you need to talk to them, and you need to do it on a personal level and not open it up, not just to friends, but like it was filmed, so the whole world knows about it. And honestly, in that culture, in the Mormon culture, I'm sure that both of them are getting ridiculed and judged and treated very unfairly. There's a lot of healing there. I can tell you right now, that for Whitney and Connor, they probably have a lot of religious trauma that neither of them are aware of and don't know that they need to heal. So then I find it really interesting, like right after that, Taylor brings up that she may or may not be pregnant. She brings up this pregnancy, and Whitney gets like all bent out of shape because like this was supposed to be her moment to get attention. I don't know about you, like I was just like, wow. So I think, all right, this is again just my opinion. I think Whitney probably grew up in a very large family, probably didn't get enough attention from mom and dad. Probably never really had anybody to confess to. She's made this great group of mom friends. She wants to be the alpha female. She wants people to sympathize with her, give her attention. And then all of a sudden Taylor says, hey, oh, by the way, I might be pregnant. I thought her reaction was a little bit too much, only because of the fact that if you're a group of friends sitting around and everybody's kind of talking, and you're talking like this in this situation, I mean, Whitney's bringing up what she's dealing with, and Taylor's like, oh, hey, I might be pregnant. It's a situation where it's like a conversation, everybody's talking, and Whitney's acting like Taylor took this from her. Now, I can tell that both Taylor and Whitney, they like to be attention. Was it done intentionally? Probably. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But it definitely was taken that way by Whitney. So it ends. Shocking ending to this first episode. We hear a 911 call from police, and it is Taylor and Dakota getting into a fight, and she is arrested. So, holy smokes, like a lot to unpack. Lots of trauma here, lots of religious trauma, lots of young girls that really need to find their authentic self. Whoa. So there was a lot in episode 1. I will be doing a reaction to episode 2, so keep an eye out for that, and feel free to put comments below. Thanks for chatting with Penelope.